Okay, so last week we saw in chapter 44 that Joseph had sent his brothers back to Canaan. And what he did was he put a silver cup in Benjamin's sack. And he told his guard to go to the men and say that whoever has the silver cup in their sack has to come back and be his slave. So then what we saw is that the brothers all went back to Joseph. They were afraid, and they knew that bad things were going to happen to them when they got back to Canaan if Benjamin wasn't with them. And Judah made a plea on behalf of his brothers with Joseph to spare Benjamin, and that Judah would be his slave. So what we saw is that the brothers were changing. Their hearts were changing. They realized the guilt of the sin of selling Joseph 22 years ago was coming back to bite them. So now what we have in chapter 45, is we have what we see in reality shows as the big reveal. And this is Joseph now is realizing that his brothers are sorry for what they did, even though they haven't said anything yet. And he can't hold himself back anymore. And it's time for him to show his brothers who he is and what the plan was. So here we go with chapter 45. Joseph could no longer keep his composure in front of his attendants, so he called out, "Send everyone away from me." No one was with him when he revealed his identity to his brothers, but he wept so loudly that the Egyptians heard it, and also Pharaoh's household heard it. Joseph said to his brothers, "I am Joseph. Is my father still living?" But they could not answer him because they were terrified in his presence. Then Joseph said to his brothers, "Please come near me." And they came near. "I am Joseph, your brother," he said, "the one you sold to Egypt. And now don't be worried or angry with yourselves for selling me here, because God sent me ahead of you to preserve life. For the famine has been in the land these 2 years, and there will be 5 more years without plowing or harvesting. God sent me ahead of you to establish you as a remnant within the land and to keep you alive by a great deliverance. Therefore, it was not you who sent me here, but God. He has made me a father to Pharaoh, lord of his entire household, and ruler over all the land of Egypt. Return quickly to my father and say to him, 'This is what your son Joseph says. God has made me lord of all Egypt. Come down to me without delay. You can settle in the land of Goshen and be near me, you and your children and grandchildren, your sheep, cattle, and all you have. There I will sustain you, for there will be 5 more years of famine. Otherwise, you, your household, and everything you have will become destitute. Look, your eyes and my brother's Benjamin's eyes can see that it is I, Joseph, who am speaking to you. Tell my father all about all my glory in Egypt and about all you have seen, and bring my father here quickly." Then Joseph threw his arms around Benjamin and wept. Benjamin wept on his shoulder. Joseph kissed each of his brothers as he wept, and afterwards his brothers talked with him. When the news reached Pharaoh's palace, Joseph's brothers have come. Pharaoh said to Pharaoh and his servants were pleased. Pharaoh said to Joseph, "Tell your brothers, do this. Load your animals and go back to the land of Canaan. Get your father and your families and come back to me. I will give you the best of the land of Egypt, and you can eat from the richness of the land. You are also commanded to do this: take wagons from the land of Egypt for your young children and your wives, and bring your father here. Do not be concerned about your belongings, for the best of all of the land of Egypt is yours." The sons of Israel did this. Joseph gave them wagons as Pharaoh had commanded, and gave them provisions for the journey. He gave each of the brothers changes of clothes, but he gave Benjamin 300 pieces of silver and 5 changes of clothes. He sent his father the following: 10 donkeys carrying the best products of Egypt, and 10 female donkeys carrying grain, food, and provisions for his father on the journey. So Joseph sent his brothers on their way, and as they were leaving, he said to them, "Don't argue on the way." So they went up from Egypt and came to their father Jacob in the land of Canaan. They said, "Joseph is still alive, and he is ruler over all the land of Egypt." Jacob was stunned, for he did not believe them. But when they told Jacob all that Joseph had said to them, and when he saw the wagons that Joseph had sent to transport him, the spirit of their father Jacob revived. Then Israel said, "Enough, my son Joseph is alive. I will go to see him before I die." So what we have here is the big reveal. Joseph revealed himself to his brothers and made sure that they went back and told their father that he was still alive. Joseph told them what the plan was. He said, "You didn't send me here, God sent me here." And that's to show us that God is leading everything that happens in our lives. It doesn't matter whether somebody did it or it just happened, whether it was good or bad, it does not matter. Everything that happens in our lives, God had a hand in it. He does this for a reason. Another place in the Bible, it says, "I have a plan for you." God says, "I have a plan for you, one to prosper." And that's God's plan for us. Not prosper in the fact that we're going to all have riches, because God knows most of us don't. But God has a plan for us to prosper so that we will be successful in our lives and so that our lives will mean something. And the reason he does this is very simple. He loves us. He wants to take care of us. He wants to make sure that, as Romans 8:28 says, all things work together for the good for those that love him and are called according to his purposes. Now, why did God do this for Joseph and his family? Well, Jacob's father was Abraham. Abraham is the father of Israel. The nation of Israel is growing from this family. And the reason that God is preserving the nation of Israel is because Messiah, Jesus, is going to come from the lineage of this family. Without this family, without God saving them, there is no Messiah, no Jesus. God has a plan. We don't know what his plan is. We can see his plan unfold, and we can look back and see the circumstances that happened to get us where we are and where God wants us to be. When you realize this, and you realize that God is taking care of you, when your heart opens up to that, when your mind opens up to that, your life changes. And your life changes for the way God wants you to be. Put your trust in God. Give him everything that you have and say to him, "Father, I believe you. I will look forward to you taking care of me." Try it. I promise you, it is wonderful when you realize this. Have a good week. We've got a couple of more chapters to go, and we're going to finish this story up, and we're just going to see how things transpire over the next little bit.